Each day that we live is a blessing bestowed by our Father above, a token of faithful endurance as emblems of God's perfect love. Each day that we live is a challenge to submit to the ways of the Lord, to seek after the path of the righteous to redemption, our promised reward. Each day that we live is a journey, each step an impression in time that leads us to heavenly glory, to the summit reached after the climb. On that mountain, we look at the vista of eternity stretching away, and we'll know that we follow the Savior through the trials we face with each day. Now, this next one is thinking of Gertrude O'Brien, who's having an operation at 1 o'clock this afternoon at Mission Memorial Hospital, and it's called My Prayer. We come to you on bended knee, bringing all our cares to thee. Heal the sick, both rich and poor. Feed the hungry at our door. Help the blind again to see all the beauty surrounding me. I'm so blessed with all you give to help me each day that I live to glorify and worship you in everything I say and do. Please take all of our requests and do with them as you think best. And may God be with all of you. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
First thing we want to do is get my sign out from Don Yelton's sign. I don't know how that happened, but it's wrong. It happens all the time, I can tell you.
Well, Richard done told me he wanted it there while you were talking.
If
It doesn't bother me a bit in the world.
if it's with your hand, we can do that. So it's with your hand? Okay.
All right, we'll do it.
Okay. Thank you, Don.
So everybody out there can see who's talking.
I need a corner of a table here.
Here, you can have all of it.
Just a corner. Get that out of my way.
I'm just going to bring you straight.
Let's talk about that sign, because these signs sum up, probably do as good a job of summing up the 11th District Congressional race as anything I could come up with. On this sign is a little tag that says, "Notice, thank you very much for your interest in the campaign and for your willingness to display a sign on your property. Campaign signs must be erected on private property only and with permission. Signs are not to be erected in public right-of-ways, on the sides of roads, or in any way that obstructs traffic. Please honor all local ordinances respecting sign placements. If we can be of any help, let us know. Mumpower for Congress." Now, what does all that mean? Where do you see signs? Everywhere, public right-of-way. I've had numerous calls from people saying that they've seen some of my colleagues, workers, pulling my signs or putting their signs in front of my signs. And I find it fascinating that people who are running for elected office will lay aside their principles for something as simple as a sign. And if you've got somebody putting signs everywhere indiscriminately, I know some people disagree, many people disagree with me. Do whatever you got to do to win. I am not willing to do whatever I have to do to win. I'm not willing to break little bitty laws to win. I think that's wrong. I'll leave that to the other folks and let them do it. So if you see one of my signs in a public spot, pull it up, throw it away. Let me know, I'll come and pull it up and throw it away because it's wrong. Now, why am I making a big deal out of that? I'm accused sometimes of being self-righteous. I'm also called other things. I wish I had the confidence to be self-righteous. I wish I had the confidence to be arrogant. I don't. My confidence is mediocre at best. I do have courage, though. I do have values. I do have principles, and I stick by those. And I won't stop. I have for the entire time I've been on council, and I will if I'm elected to Washington. I will not bend on principles. And trust me, it would be easy if I could. I would save myself a lot of wear and tear because, like many of you, when people attack me, I'm not, what's that term, thick skin? I'll never forget the first person that came up to me, and there's been a parade of them since then, when I first got elected to city council, and they said, "You need to develop a thick skin." I didn't have a thick skin 6 years ago. I don't have one now. If you want to hurt my feelings, I'm wide open. You can do it. Because if you have a thick skin, you have a thick head. it leads to a thick head. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put on a lot of armor and pretend to be something I'm not. I think that's disingenuous. Now, who am I? I'm Carl Mumpower. I'm a city councilman in Asheville. I know most everybody in the room. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with you today. I appreciate you giving attention to these candidates. This is hard. What they're doing is hard. They need moral support. They need attaboys. They need we're behind yous, and I could feel some of that going on. And thank you for doing that, because it's painful to run. You're under the spotlight. You're criticized, scrutinized. It's hard. It takes courage, a courage button to do it. Thank you all three for doing it. Real quickly, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention EMT, the judicial positions in North Carolina. As you know, the Democrats got those made nonpartisan because they got tired of Republican conservatives being elected to judicial positions. And so now it's hard you can't tell who's who. It's a nonpartisan election. You can't vote a straight ticket. So be sure when you run, you've heard this before, I want to say it again. Remember that thing, EMT. Edmonds, McCullough, and Tyson. I'm trying to tell you all what to remember. Thank goodness you did.
Keep telling us, we'll all get it, Carl.
I can remember that EMT thing. Thank you. But let's look out for those fellows. They work hard, and believe me, they're in an important position. We lose one of those positions, we lose a lot. Okay. Got on Asheville City Council 6 years ago, reluctantly. Didn't enjoy campaigning. Was re-elected a little over 2 years ago. Didn't enjoy campaigning. Running for Congress now, I do enjoy this. Now, I'm a little battered and bruised. It's been a difficult week. As I mentioned, you may have seen a little bit in the paper, a little bit on TV. But that's okay. I stood up for the right thing. And if anybody's interested, we won't waste a lot of time on that. We got a list of the rules in January. Last week, one of the other candidates called and asked that those rules be modified. We got an email announcing they were, and I challenged it. I said, folks, we agreed to this debate on these principles, and if you're going to modify the rules at the last minute, I may not be the guy that you need at your forum. No effort to modify their position. I stuck with mine. Fortunately, one of the gentlemen, Mr. Hicks, and he is a gentleman, recognized the error, offered to acknowledge it and make modifications, and that was good enough for me. So we are able now to actively campaign at the event, and he has said, yes, we're sorry, we left it off. We've never allowed campaign signs, and I don't know how you all feel, but why in the world would you want to have a campaign where you can't have campaign signs? If you can't actively campaign at a campaign event, where do you actively campaign? Yeah. But that's up to them. They say they've always had that rule. That's okay, but they left it off of our information sheet. And I'm grateful for Mr. Hicks for taking a principal position in his own right, modifying things, and so I'm going and happy to participate. I don't like to be stubborn for no reason, but I do believe if the right thing is the right thing. So let's talk about what I'm going to do. Why me? Why would I be the right guy for this important responsibility? This is not a trophy. A seat in Congress is not a trophy. It is not a prize. It's not a plaque on the wall. It is a major responsibility. My wife talks to me frequently, questions my judgment, encourages me to get mental health services. And I do. I talk to myself recently. I'm not doing a good job with myself, but I try. Why are we doing this? She's asked me many times, and it is a we thing. Those of you, where's your wife? See, she's already worn out. It's very, very tough on the spouses, not just running but serving. My wife, I can't tell you the anguish she's been through watching those city council meetings. That's 6-1 thing, reading that in the paper every day, reading the paper somebody's called you arrogant, whatever, an overly confident farm animal, I think is the proper.
That's life.
Yes, an overly confident father. It's hurtful. I've had my grandkids crying before. Remember the drug thing? Remember the drug thing?
Yeah.
I've had my grandkids crying before, calling me up, please don't go tonight, Papa. That stuff's not pleasant. It's not easy. But it's part of being a person, whether you're man or woman, of principle and courage and trying to do the right thing. So my contract with Western North Carolina is to do this, and it is a contract. I will not betray any of these 5 things. One is fight waste and corruption. Part of the reason, and I'll just tell you this up front, that I stood firm on Flat Rock, and it had been so easy not to send that email. It's been so easy. Saved myself a lot of wear and tear. Is if I can't stand up for what's right here on little things, I won't be able to stand up for what's right in Washington on big things. If I can't challenge my supporters, then I'm going to have a lot more difficulty challenging my, well, let's use the term, the enemy. The enemy, the people trying to undermine the country in Washington. This week was a practice opportunity, and trust me, I've had many of them, for standing up for the right thing. So, fight waste and corruption, and I will do that with courage, and I will go after it wherever it is, and it will make no difference whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or whoever it is. We've had a great example of waste this week, and this really makes me think we definitely want to put the federal government in charge of health care in America. Have you heard the latest on the credit card audit?
Sure.
Almost 50%. They audited the credit cards and being used by the federal government employees, and almost 50% of them failed the audit. Almost 50% of them. That's waste.
41 to be exactly, 41%.
There is, thank you, Don, and there is, I can tell you in Iraq that there's a lot of waste. And if money is being misspent in the wrong area, it means it doesn't get applied in the right area, and we'll fight that. Second thing I'll do is function as an independent Republican, and I've been asked many times what that is. It means I uphold Republican principles with all my heart and power and mind and spirit. I do not uphold the Republican power structure. I have no hesitancy in saying that. Why? Because they betrayed us. They betrayed us. We had control for 6+ years. And the budget didn't go down, it went up dramatically. Earmarks didn't go down, they went up. And other principles that we have as a party were looked aside. I am ashamed of our leadership for betraying what was one of the best opportunities we have ever had to turn America around. And I'm going to fight that. Now, back in the 80s and 70s, you'd hear the term, I didn't leave the Democrat Party, they left me. Well, there's some measure of that today. You hear a lot of people leaving the Republican Party because the Republican Party is leaving us. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to fight for the Republican Party. I believe in the Republican Party. I believe we can recapture our values and our heritage and our principle, and I won't let go of that. I believe it is the hope. The Democrats have already given in to the extreme elements of their party. The future lies in the hands of authentic, principle-driven conservatives. We're going to have them. Third thing I'm going to do, and I admire Congressman Taylor for this. He and I have a little disagreement on earmarks. He was more comfortable with them than I am. If you're looking for a guy to go to Washington and bring a lot of pork back to Western North Carolina, vote for one of the other fellows, because I will not do it. I'm interested in fighting to keep our money in our pocket, not send it off to Washington, let them skim it and send it back to us as they want to. I think that's wrong, to indulge special interests, if you will. I'm not interested in seeing the federal government support parks in front of City County Plaza, butterfly exhibits, and some of the other nonsense that we invest in. But I admire Congressman Taylor greatly for his emphasis on, and I mean this very sincerely, and I've sat down with that man numerous times in the distant past while I was on council. I've been in his office many times. He prioritized constituent service. He made it a major job to look out for people, and people appreciated that. And I can tell you it's important. Helping people get through the federal bureaucracy and the maze is terribly critical to that role as a 11th district representative. I got my first case today. First lady, first constituent saying she needed some service. And I explained, I'm not a congressman. I'm running. You may know this lady. Her 19-year-old son was paralyzed last year in a car wreck, lived in Weaverville. Anybody know who I'm talking about? She's sleeping on the floor because she had to give her son her bed. She has diabetes, had brain cancer, is disabled, sleeping on the floor. Said her washing machine was broken because it bumps all the time. That means it's out of balance. I'm going to go to her house, and my first official job, constituent service, will be to balance a washing machine. I can do that.
Let's go to the budget next.
She needs help with her son. You know, if you're paralyzed, there's a lot of things a lot of caregiving items that are needed. She needs help with those and some other things. We're going to try to help her. If you have an interest in helping, just holler at my office and be grateful for your support. But I think constituent service is a major priority. And by nature anyway, you know, I've got a master's degree in social work. I've got a PhD in psychology. I like helping people, so that one kind of comes naturally. And I'll do it regardless of how much money somebody has in their pocket. I will not promise. I will not be driven by money. If you don't believe me, go check my candidate account out, and you'll know that I'm not driven by money. Ask Michael Muller, my campaign manager, how we're doing with. If I'm making money, job one. I'm not going to. It's part of the equation, but it will not lead the way. Fourth thing I'm going to do is look out for our children and grandchildren. I'm almost done, by the way. I want to get to these other good fellas. Our children and grandchildren. It's not just about us. It's not just about us. And something that's different for our children and grandchildren today that was different for us is that, now we didn't have it easy. I don't know how, most of y'all look like you were brought up in very well-to-do families, Biltmore Forest, Ivy League schools, and just had it easy all your life. No, very few people in this room probably, if any of us, had it easy. We live in a fallen world, and it's not easy under any circumstances, but we know what it's like to struggle. But there was a bridge that you could struggle toward to a future of hope. What I'm worried about is we're letting the bridge fall down. We're saddling our children and grandchildren with tremendous debt. We're saddling them with a future a deceptive future where government promise is replacing, artificial government promise is replacing what I call the American success equation. Liberty, opportunity, and responsibility. Those three words together. You take any of the three away and you're in trouble. Liberty, opportunity, and responsibility. If you want to define about any problem we have in America, if you look, one of those words is being messed with. Liberty, opportunity, and responsibility. And frankly, all three of them are at risk right now, and the one we bailed out on first was responsibility.
Yeah.
That's the first one. We got a little lazy. And as a culture, we're can you imagine, when we were growing up, did we ever have any idea that we would hear people say illegal immigration is important because they have to do the jobs that Americans don't want to do? What a bunch of nonsense. What a bunch of nonsense. I've got to digress on that one just a moment. That's a pet peeve of mine. That one really bugs me. And you know who my role model is? Sonny Bono. Remember Sonny Bono? Sure. Killed in an accident, Sonny and Cher. Did you hear what he said about illegal immigration? Somebody asked him about it, and he caught a lot of grief in California. They said, why are you against illegal immigration? He said, because it's illegal. It's illegal. And that's exactly it. I'm not against the Hispanic culture, Mexicans, anybody of that nature. Color has no issue in this. It's not about race. It's about people illegally crossing our porous borders and people illegally employing them. And let me tell you what my real pet peeve is, and I learned this spending a lot of time in public housing. The dropout rate in our high schools is averaging 30% across the state. 50% for minorities here in Asheville, North Carolina, and some people suggest 70% for black males in Asheville, North Carolina. That's horrific. What are we doing to these young people? What are we doing to our culture? Well, you know part of the reason that goes on? Because our businesses and the employers do not have the incentive to get in the fight and fight for those kids because they get this cheap, ready labor supply coming in illegally. And we're betraying those young people by doing that. That's wrong. I don't want to be a part of that. The fifth thing I will do, the fifth finger on the hand I want to lay on Washington is the right thing. I am a principle-driven person. Now that doesn't mean I'm a perfect person. Ask my wife. I'm not. I try pretty hard. I try pretty hard to be a good guy, but I try real hard to do the right thing. I try to learn. You know, do you find the truth elusive? Hard to get a hold of? I'll give you an example. Don, can I borrow one of your, and this is nothing against either of the other candidates. If I hold this up to you, and here's why the truth is elusive. If I hold this up to you and say, what is this? Don't guess. Just based on what you see, what is this?
Blank piece of paper.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a blank piece of paper. I might say, well, no, it's a bumper sticker. Who's lying? Who's wrong? Who's manipulating? Neither one of us. We're looking at the same thing from a different angle of view. Well, that automatically makes the truth hard to get a hold of. But then you got a lot of people. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled is the book he wrote. He wrote another book called People of the Lie. And here's another part of the problem. Because not only do we have this good people trying to look at things from different angles of view, but then we got people who are willing to hide the truth, conceal it. And Don, I want this so bad. Try to tear it up, manipulate it. I owe you, Don. You know, and abuse it and everything else.
I'm used to that, Carl. I'm used to it.
They do it to my sons and your brothers. And so the truth is hard to get a hold of. Well, I try hard to get a hold of the truth. And when I get a hold of it, I don't let go of it. Until I'm proven wrong, I will not let go of it. I was not going to let go of that situation in Flat Rock because the truth was they changed the rules. And you want to know why that guy's so mad at me? Because he knew it. And he didn't want to admit it. All he had to say is, oops, we're sorry. Is there something we can do to compromise and work this out? All we had to do, what they did was say, well, can we put them in the signs in the entryway? Sure, that's fine with me. But pride took over, and the person didn't want to do it. And when pride takes over, who becomes the bad guy? Somebody else. So, those are the 5 things that I want to do in Washington. That's my pledge to you, my commitment to you. I will do those with my fullest heart, mind, body, and spirit. I believe I have the skills to beat Heath Shuler. There are 2 Heath Shulers. There's the one at home who talks like a conservative. And by the way, there's a difference in a liberal with a few conservative positions and a real conservative. And you're measured as a conservative if you're a candidate or an elected official. You're not measured by your words. You're measured by your actions and your votes. And I am an authentic conservative on that basis. There's the one here that talks like a conservative and the one in Washington that votes like a liberal.
That's right.
I'm going to say it out loud. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I'm going to resist all temptation to be personally critical of Heath Shuler. I actually like the gentleman. But he is a Pelosi puppet. I am not a puppet. I will never be a puppet to any of the leadership in Washington. I'll demonstrate that at home. I'll apply it when I get to Washington. I'm grateful for your support. I think we have just a moment for questions. Is that true? Do we have a moment more?
You have a moment?
Just a moment more. Any quick questions? Good. No questions. That's great.
Now, Carl, you and I have violent differences in how we perceive the illegal alien problem.
Yes, sir.
But I think we can agree on one issue. I've heard 4,000 Americans, and that includes mothers, fathers, children, have been killed by drunken illegal aliens. And all I hear about is the damn minimum wage jobs that we're losing. I don't hear anything about these people being killed by these people. That's what concerns me. I'm more concerned about the people being killed than the dollars.
My understanding is, I think there's a lot more we agree on illegal immigration than you might believe, but my understanding, there's been more people killed by illegal immigrants in America than have been killed in Iraq in the war. Is that? Wow. I see nodding heads.
These are driving accidents.
That's scary. And by the way, one more thing on illegal immigration. Another thing that frustrates me, and this is why the Republicans are in on this deal too, is if you've got this labor pool coming, illegal labor pool coming across, it keeps wages artificially suppressed. As far as I'm concerned, I ought to pay a quarter more for a hamburger so somebody can make a decent living working at McDonald's than keeping the wages artificially low and having to put everybody on welfare. And that's part of the major conspiracy, I believe, between the Republicans and the Democrats. It's more of a complacency than a conspiracy, but it still does great harm to us. But thank you.
They have more rights than defendants.
In Buncombe County, we plea bargain about 98% of our cases. North Carolina has gone from having one of the best judicial systems in the world to one of the worst. What do you do about that? You're bringing up one serious consequence of the illegal immigration issue. There are many serious consequences, and I'll tell you, the only way you fix it, you have to enforce existing law and go after the people who create the attraction with jobs and money. And that is simply the employers. So you ask what I'm going to do? I've been trying to do that. I got into trouble just 2 weeks ago raising the issue about, we have 3 major projects downtown. All 3 are being built by people who do not speak English. And statistically, at least half, probably as many as 70% of those are illegal. I'm having a hard time getting anything done. But I will tell you one thing, on one of those projects, a lot of those illegal or non-English speaking folks are gone. It's real interesting. About a week later I drove by and they were all gone, which that's a minor victory anyway.
Somebody who is an illegal alien, he is here, he received chemotherapy and radiation, and guess what? He don't get a bill.
Right. Right.
I get bills, but he don't get bills.
And try getting a DUI. Try getting a DUI and see what happens to you, and see what happens to an illegal alien that they can't identify.
Well, in Canada, they'll hold your DUI and you get 3, then they make you a convicted felon, and then Ron Moore used to say, I put another convicted felon in jail.
And he's not talking about illegal aliens.
Yeah, I know.
DUI.
We spend more money providing services to illegal aliens than we do on the war in Iraq.
Why is it that they get free and we don't?
I think we know the answer. It goes back to that word responsibility and accountability that we were talking about later. Government today makes rules on a host of issues. They do not have a matching responsibility to enforce those rules. And when you have that system, when you're abandoning the rule of law, everything breaks. Not just the illegal immigration. How about our drug problem? Those of you brought up in this area, who would have ever believed that it was almost normal to have a crack house in your neighborhood? It's absolutely absurd what we've allowed to happen. One more question, I think I need to turn it over to the other good fellows here. Carl?
Like you were talking, I was a businessman, or am a businessman, but when they had this flip, Reagan amnesty people, I got a letter as a businessman stating that if I hired an illegal, or I better have the right Social Security number, they're going to charge me $10,000 per person. That's not happening.
We've abandoned the rule of law. We were more serious about everything back then than we are now. Now we're surrendering, and I think we're surrendering our children and grandchildren's future as we do that. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Look forward to you guys being able to hear from the other 3 candidates. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to leave a few signs here. If you want to take one home, I'm grateful. Remember where you put them. Private property with permission.